Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is a mother of two daughters, a dog mom, and coach with Lifestyle Physiques who's been competing since 2015 and earned her pro card at North Americans in 2018 in the 40 and over category. I'm super excited to have her on here. We're going to get into a lot of fun stuff. Welcome to the show, Belinda Rivera. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Celeste. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm very happy to be talking to you. And of course, I got to ask you, what is something you do or a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage?
So I think it's just, for me, it's just really visualizing myself on stage, telling myself that, reminding myself all the hard work and effort that's gone into this competition, and just really pumping myself up and giving myself the confidence that I need to get on that stage by visualizing myself hitting that stage.
Love that. And, there's a lot of women out there who think, my age will keep me from being successful. But you started competing when you were 39 and you went pro 1 year later, which is extremely impressive. Did you ever think you would be doing this when you think back to your 20s?
Absolutely not. This was definitely not something that I never saw myself doing. I grew up very athletic, playing sports. So I was a softball player. I played soccer. I was in and out of the gym, just due to being an athlete, but nothing competitive, bodybuilding, lifting, until I had my second daughter.
Wow.
Just going to the gym more frequently, trying to get back in shape after having my second daughter, consistently, until somebody approached me at the gym and asked me if I competed. This was obviously years down the road, but never in my plan, never thought that I would be in the place I am today, competing, or even just the lifestyle in general that goes along with it. So it's changed my life in so many ways, good ways.
Yeah. You went from not necessarily living it completely. Being an athlete, though, definitely can, I think, contribute to success in this sport, which I would love to hear your opinion on. Have you found that the experience you had in your athletics growing up played a role in maybe your mindset going into bodybuilding?
Absolutely, 100%. However, I've always played team sports, not necessarily individual sports. It is a little bit different. However, with us and my team, we are very, very much a family-oriented team. So we do definitely support each other. But to be honest, this is an individual sport. I'm in the gym alone. I'm preparing my meals alone. I'm posing alone. I see my coaches, my coach every now and then, have a posing coach, or I'll train with somebody on my team. But for the most part, this is a very much individual sport. So that mindset, I think, has to be a different than a team sport.
Absolutely. And I 100% agree with that. I've had the same experience because I went from playing volleyball to this, and I did get into jujitsu, which I think definitely supported the individual mentality. But at the same time, it's different. It's a unique sport. And I love how you brought up the team aspect that does come from bodybuilding, when you do have a team. But at the end of the day, it's you and the weights, it's you and your food, it's you on that stage every posing session. And like you said, before going on stage, you're visualizing the hard work you've put in, the effort you've put in, and everything really falls on your shoulders. Whereas in a team sport, it's like you can play your best game and your whole team can still lose because maybe not everybody else was still on theirs.
Absolutely. And I don't know, I mean, I've always been a very competitive person, but for some reason, as I get older, my competitiveness gets more aggressive.
Really?
I am just seems like it just makes me, as I get older, I become more aggressive. My goals get bigger. So yeah, I don't know if it's just with me or if it's an age thing, but I do feel myself year after year being more competitive, especially in this sport.
Interesting. Okay, so I gotta ask you then. I notice you usually compete in the Masters Pro shows. Do you have any plans to compete in any of the open ones outside of Masters?
That was such a great question. And my coach, Ray from Lifestyle Physiques, we table this question all the time.
Hmm.
So we, based on our current plan, we really want to master the Masters division before getting into the Open division. So last year I did pretty well. I placed second in Pittsburgh, North Americans, in the 40 and over. So, I mean, it's usually our plan is coming in those top spots in the master division before we hit that open stage. However, I'm trying to convince my coach of, hey, let's just do it, put myself out there, and just see where I land in the open division, because I haven't done an open show since my pro debut. And that was a very, very competitive show. It was Sacramento Pro. It was 2 years ago. And I mean, it was just stacked with Olympians. But at the same time, I'm definitely open to do it. But it is definitely something that my coach and I have to decide on.
Definitely. I actually really like that perspective of mastering masters before going into that. There's something that I keep thinking of, which is, when will you know you've mastered it? How will you know when, okay, yeah, we're going to go into open because you've placed well?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think when I know when I'm ready, when I'm confidently ready, not necessarily just regardless of the placings, but confidence wise, to put myself on in an open stage, I know for me mentally, I need a couple more master shows under my belt.
Love that. And before you went pro, you actually had competed in both the open and the Masters Open classes. So there's usually a strategy behind this. And I'd love if you'd be willing to maybe share that with us, or share your reasoning behind doing that.
Going open as
Yeah,
well.
doing both. When people register for multiple show or multiple
Right.
classes at shows, I'd love if you could share maybe your strategy behind that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I competed before I did my first national show. I did actually compete 3 years as an amateur, but I only did one show a year.
Hmm.
So this is before I actually got serious and made the decision to go make a move and go and do a national show. It was just more of, hey, let's do it. It's a once a year. I'm getting my body back in shape. And I did both classes. I did do open and I did do masters, and I always made placed top five in both divisions. To be honest, in the masters division, I took first place in those 3 years. And then I did open and I did place top five in the open classes. And then after those 3 years, I said, hey, maybe I'm onto something here. I keep placing really, really well. Am I mentally ready? Am I financially ready? Because obviously we know that the sport is very expensive. So you have to prepare yourself financially as well, especially if you're doing like a national show that's, out of state. But yeah, I finally made the decision of, after 3 years and placing very well in the open and the masters, that I would go ahead and take it to nationals. However, I did lean on my coach a lot as well, right before we went to nationals, to make the decision for me if we thought we could do open and masters. And, we both agreed I was ready to do open. And that open show that I did locally before I went to nationals, I did place second. So yeah, I did pretty well that year in open, in an amateur local show.
Definitely. So what was your journey like through the year that you went and you turned pro? I don't remember exactly. Did you turn pro at that at your next national stage or national show? How many shows did you do before turning pro?
So that year when I went to my coach, and this is a year I selected my new coach, Ray from Lifestyle Physiques. He was my new coach. And I had met him at backstage at one of our local shows here in Tucson, Arizona. And there was just something about his backstage presence that appealed me to him. I was just appalled, on the way he was with his athletes, the attention he was giving his athletes. I mean, his athletes did really, really well. One of his girls beat me in the open. That's another year I took second. I did place second that year as well. And his girl beat me in the open. She took first and I took second. And he was just his professionalism, his sportsmanship. He sent me a message and said, "You did great. I know it was going to be between my girl and your girl to place in the open." And I started talking to him and I said, "Look, I'm really thinking about doing a national show. Are you taking clients?" So we put a plan together, and I did a local show here in Tucson, kind of like as a warm-up show. And then I did Europa, and the strategy we put together is we try to get in front of the judges that were going to be at the national show in Pittsburgh, and North Americans. We try to get in front of them before we actually hit the national show, so we can work on the feedback before we actually, hit the national stage. So we were super lucky. Two of the judges that judged Europa that year were the same judges that were judging North Americans. So the interesting part of it is I didn't place that well in masters. Mm-hmm. I did super well in the local show in masters. But when I went to Europa, it seemed like there was just a whole different, obviously the judges are different between, just a local show and then, a major production like a Europa show. But I placed fourth in masters. That is the lowest placing I've ever placed before. So I was really, really nervous going into North Americans, because I was like, "Coach, I mean, this is like the same judges. It's kind of like a national stage," and we placed fourth. So we got the feedback, and we went straight to the judges right after the show. We got the feedback, and they basically said, "You're too razor sharp, you're too lean, you're too hard, you need to come in softer." So I believe it was like 2 weeks between Europa and North Americans, and my coach was like, "All right, we were going to feed you, and you're not going to do cardio for these next 2 weeks." Wow. And I was like freaking out, because this is my first national show, and I'm like, this is just way too easy. There's just no way, that this is the journey. But I put all my trust in my coach. We went to North Americans. It was my first national show, and I got my pro card.
That is awesome.
I was super nervous. I mean, that was my first national show, so I didn't even know like the level, the level of competitiveness or the competitors there. I mean, I was talking to a girl backstage when we were lined up, and she's like, "Yeah, this is my 7th national show." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm totally going to get killed today." Yes. And, just girls that have been going it for their pro card year after year. And I'm talking about 30, North Americans is probably one of the biggest shows, and talking about, 30 girls in my class, 25 girls in my class. It was an amazing show.
Okay. I love that you just shared that, because so often I think people get intimidated backstage, right? Like, "Oh,
absolutely.
Of course you would feel that way. Like, you look around, you're like, that girl's competed 4 times this year for her pro card."
Absolutely. Yeah. You're like, "Look at her glutes. There's just no way. Look at her shoulders." As a matter of fact, that show, it's really funny. We were working out the day before that show in Pittsburgh, and there was a girl there, and I saw her in the bathroom, and we started talking. Super nice girl. I won't mention her name, but she's super nice. But she was really, really like her shoulders, and she was really, really hard. And I was telling my coach, I'm like, I'm competing against her tomorrow. She's in my class. So you do, I mean, there is, times where you just have to be, in your zone. It's easier said than done, especially for me. I'm speaking from experience, it's easier said than done. But,
Right.
when you're backstage and you're looking around your competition, it is definitely hard not to let that intimidate you.
Absolutely. When you say that, I think about that athletes meeting, right? You're showing up for the show, you're kind of looking around, you're like, oh, who might be in my class? Who looks like they're my height? And then you kind of zone in and you refocus on yourself.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes a big difference between those who actually do their best on the stage and those who don't. Because if you get distracted watching other people, I had that experience one time at a show. I was like watching other people do their routine.
Mm-hmm,
And then I
mm-hmm.
went on stage and I totally screwed up my routine. It's like, what the heck? That is an amateur move. I'm not a pro
Absolutely.
yet, but I know enough now that I will never do that again. And I think
And
those
that's, yeah,
those
absolutely.
experiences, they educate us.
And that's why when you said, what is your ritual, before your heel hits the stage, that's exactly what I try to do is
Yeah.
just envision myself on the stage, with my routine, where I need to, focus, where my hair flips are going, just really trying to envision myself on that stage. Something else that I've tried to help me as well is I'm just a very social. I think I categorize myself as a friendly social person. So if it's somebody that I'm feeling intimidated by, like sometimes I'll try to go to introduce myself to them and just say, hey, good luck. Or I've seen you on Instagram. I follow you. You look great. I like your suit color. Your earrings are great. Whatever it may
Yeah,
be to kind of just break that ice. And sometimes it does help with the nerves because you're like, oh, this girl's really cool. She's super nice. And usually everybody's really, really nice backstage and, the community is really friendly. So, after that, it's like, great. It just kind of, calms the nerves a little bit as well.
absolutely. And not that these people are like, your heroes, but it makes me think of when you meet your hero or quote unquote that experience, like, oh, wait, they're a real person. All these
Yeah.
people have gone through the same journey and it connects us all. And you yourself are a coach. So I'm sure you have women who struggle with this as well. And I'd love to hear your perspective from as an athlete, how having a coach specifically lifestyle physiques, how has that impacted your journey? You switched coaches, he helped you with that strategy, and you ultimately got your pro card at your first national show. So I'd love to just hear how having that coach supports you.
Oh, how my coach supports me.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I can't say enough. So I'm with Lifestyle Physiques. My coach is Ray, and if you've ever seen him backstage,
I've
you'll
seen him. I think I saw him at USA's, I'm pretty sure.
oh man, that man. Our first show, national show together at North Americans. I promise he probably did not sleep. He just, and I think everyone probably says that about their coaches, but he is not just only a coach. He is a great support system, a confidence builder. I mean, the whole nine yards. And it's funny because now that I am a coach, I tell him this all the time. I completely understand why you are feeling this way because now I'm sitting on the other side of the stage and I am just as nervous as my girls when they go on stage. So I can feel and I can attest to everything that emotions and stress, and know when your girls are slacking off based on their check-ins and know that they're not hitting their diet 100% because of their check-ins. I have so much more respect from a coach aspect because now I get to live that as a lifestyle physiques coach.
Okay, I gotta ask you, how do you know as a coach if your girl's been slacking off?
Oh man, you can tell the minute you get those check-ins. I know right away, and it's it's based on the check-ins, right? I mean, Also just, I check in with my girls pretty frequently, just as my coach does. I mean, he's a great mentor. He's mentoring me. I mean, he's constantly giving me feedback. I send him my girls check-ins to give me feedback. He's a great mentor. Since I am under Lifestyle Physiques, it's all the team. Like, I want to learn. I want to know what he's seeing. Yeah, I know right away when I check in with them, they're not responsive. I can see from their social media posts as well, right? I'm like, oh, this girl usually posts every single day when she's doing her cardio. I don't see anything. So, I'll just kind of check in with them to see how they're feeling. And, I'm an athlete myself, so I completely understand, you're going to have bad days, low days, and I try to give back to them exactly what Ray gives back to me, is just the confidence, the motivation, just making sure that they're continuing to push forward and they can do this. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I love how you're gaining mentorship, you're gaining empathy as well, and you're learning along the way. And I know there's different approaches for every client because everyone's so unique. And I remember seeing a post of yours where you had a client who was doing no carbs for 4 weeks, and that was her approach necessary. And I'd love to know what you notice in the women you coach to the stage as far as those differences in approaches and what's necessary, and how you determine the best approach for them to be ready.
Yeah, so it definitely depends on their physique, right? This girl that I think that you're mentioning is she, we were just really struggling with leaning her out right close to stage time. So we did, drop her calories a little bit and increased her cardio. But yeah, I mean, for me, I'm still new at this. I try to make the best decisions I can, but that's where I definitely lean on Ray a lot and get his feedback, my coach, and say, hey, coach, what do you think? This is what I'm thinking. This is a plan I think we should put her on. I'm going to decrease her cardio, increase her calories or whatever that may be, or, hey, I'm going to give this girl a refeed. Would you agree? So I do check in with him for those major decisions like that, even with peak week plans, right? So, hey, this is what I'm thinking for peak week. Any thoughts, feedback? And, he'll send me a quick text and look at the check-ins and agree, disagree, ask me a couple questions. So I'm super grateful that he helps me and mentors me through some of those decisions, because I am definitely new.
I love that. I love how you're so open to learning and you're expressing that. And something that kind of bothers me in the industry is it seems like there's this expectation now that the only way to prep is on super high calories, super low cardio, extremely high carbs. Like, people expect that that's just how it should be. And I think that they neglect to think about what their body truly needs. And I'm assuming, as a coach, you've probably had girls who expect the former.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, actually, your body's not responding to that. And we can, I specialize in the whole mental aspect. So I help a lot of girls understand that, it's your perspective on the plan. So how do you help girls to understand why you're doing what you're doing when maybe they had a different expectation?
Yeah. And I have a couple of clients. I don't have a lot of clients yet, just because, like I said, I try to keep my clientele kind of low as well. Just because, I do have a full-time job. I'm trying to prep most of the time myself. I do have 2 kids, so I still have a whole life, not just coaching. So I do kind of try to keep my clientele very small, but the small girls, amount of girls that I have, they are amazing. They don't ask questions, or they don't, respond, negatively. They definitely put their trust in us as a team. And we're a very, very connected team. So, we do have one of our girls, and you had her on the podcast, Chelsea, who just got her pro card as well. So, I mean, I try to bring in Chelsea and say, hey, look at her posing, what do you think? We really try to feed off of each other. And help each other out in all aspects of the team. So it just doesn't have to be me, Ray, or doesn't have to be myself. Like, we all have a team that can, help each other out and give each other feedback. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. No, you really did. I appreciate that perspective. And I want to actually shift the spotlight back on you. I do appreciate you talking about your coaching experiences. And the reason I asked is because I always find it so fascinating when athletes take on the coaching role. And I think it's cool because you get to learn so much, get the objectivity, get the empathy. But I want to hear more about your growth, because you've put on significant amounts of muscle. Your posing has come a long way. And this is all since you first started competing. So what do you feel has contributed to your growth?
I feel, and this is what I always tell my girls, and this is why I love coaching so much, is I am so excited to share my knowledge and experience. And when I get that from other athletes or even just my teammates, that's how I grow, right? Not just by putting on muscle or being in the gym, or, physically growing, but mentally growing. And then just, building confidence as well has really helped me in those two areas. So everything I do as a coach is everything I want as an athlete. So, I'm holding, weekly posing session, group posing sessions. I'm one-on-one in the gym with my girls. I don't do any, so far, I haven't done any like virtual training or any coaching. All my coaching is on site. So I'm doing one-on-one sessions with my girls once or twice a week. I also give them tips on the meal plans, right? So when I make meal plans, I make them super specific where the food is appealing to eat, right? So that's something that my coach doesn't do, and don't tell him, but he just, he'll say, when he gives us our meal plan, he'll say chicken and greens, or he's getting a little bit better, but I try to spice my girls' plans up just a little bit more with, hey, you can add bell peppers and onions, or you can use this seasonings, or if there's tips that I'm using on the fly, I'll text them and be like, hey, you guys might want to try this in your oatmeal, or, so that's how that's where I'm growing, is I'm using these experiences to help with my coaching on what I expect as an athlete as well.
I love that. I think it's cool that you can use your experience to support others. And part of being an athlete, requires a lot of intensive training, and you are working with some of your girls a couple times a week. But what does your training style look like year round?
Year round, even off season?
Both.
Yeah, so off season off season was probably one of my funnest off seasons I had. I don't know why. I think it was more like it's post-COVID. So it was just more of, hey, the gyms are back. I get to be back in the gym, and you kind of appreciate the gym a little bit more. But to be honest, for me, it doesn't feel like it changes, other than I'm getting more food, and I'm a little bit more, my calorie intake's a little bit higher. But as far as the gym and working out, I feel stronger because I am, off season, and I am getting those extra calorie intakes, and I have some, refeeds or cheats, or, I can have, a donut here and there. But honestly, I'm still hitting the gym 5 to 6 times a week. I'm doing about 20 minutes of cardio. It's not intense cardio. It's more of a low intense cardio. But it doesn't change. I'm in the gym almost every single day, 5 to 6 times a week, even off season. So once again, it goes back to that question we had earlier, is it's just changed my lifestyle. That's what I like. I mean, if I don't go, I don't feel complete, to be honest. I feel sluggish. I don't feel like I have energy. I feel, it's just part of my lifestyle.
Absolutely. And of course, life was a little bit different before competing. And I'd love if you could maybe share with us how you turned something that was really going to be a once a year hobby into a career, and what inspired or sparked that.
Oh, yeah. Great question. So when I start, thankfully, I mean, it's bittersweet to me. I did start later on, and yes, age is just a number, but at the same time, with age, we do have some opportunities as we get older. But my daughters are older as well. So, I didn't have, my daughter was a freshman in high school, a freshman or sophomore in high school when I started competing. My younger daughter, my older daughter was already older, but yeah, so I didn't have that extra responsibility of like a small child as a mom. So I didn't have to spend as much time, at home as I would with a smaller child. So as my daughter got older and I started competing, and the time commitment and the financial commitments going into that, I did have the extra time, and I did have the extra, finances as I planned to continue to compete. But yeah, I think like I said, I made the decision after I did it for 3 years and I started doing really well. And I started investing in a lot more as well, right? Started going to most shows. I went to Olympia, just trying to see exactly what the lifestyle would be before making the decision. And I was really hooked. So especially after doing really well, in both open and masters, I was like, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe I could do really well because I do have the passion for it. So why not just go ahead and see where it takes us?
Absolutely. I love that, and being open to possibility is so important, I think, just all throughout life. And you mentioned earlier, you're working a full-time job on top of this. Do you mind sharing with us what a normal day looks like for you?
Oh my gosh. I'll actually talk about today because today was super hectic today. Um, but I did have to plan my schedule out really early well, as part of the lifestyle, as everyone should know, or you should plan appropriately your day just to make sure that you're getting all your priorities in that you need to get in one day, right? So because I knew I had this podcast today, I know I had a full work day. I did get up this morning at 5:30 and hit the gym. Just hit the gym early this morning, got back, took a shower. I work from home. So I had to be logged in and in a meeting until 8 a.m. At 8 a.m. Then I had a full work day until 5 p.m. I got some food, got, to rest for about 15 minutes, and now it's the podcast. So it's been a really, really crazy day today, but like, I love it. I love every part of it. I wouldn't change anything for the world.
That's cool. I appreciate you making the time to talk to me today as well. And part of being having a full-time job and then also coaching and competing and being a mom, I think it's important to understand the scheduling aspect. So how do you determine the best time to step away from the stage? Whether that's, for an improvement season or because of work scheduling, like how do you personally sort your schedule out as far as competing?
Yeah, so right now, I haven't had, it's all, done through my coach and I just understanding what would be the proper off season for me. However, making the right decision of not taking too much time away, because we all know, judges like you to come back. They remember your face. They remember who you are. So, and they remember, the feedback they're giving you and the improvements you're making. So for me, it's all around, off season and making sure that I'm getting the proper growth that I need in my off season, but also being strategic that I'm not too far, haven't been on stage for too long. And as far as work goes right now, I'm super grateful and thankful. Like my job is super flexible. I work from home, so I can work from anywhere. I'm super grateful for that. So, I can, take my work in a hotel, and travel at the same time. So I'm super grateful for that. For me, it's just also making sure that I'm mentally prepared and I'm not burned out. So far last year, I only did my one show, Pittsburgh. I was supposed to do muscle contest in November, but they did cancel the masters division. So I didn't end up doing that show, but I only did one show that last year. So I definitely want to make sure that I come back this year and really work hard. to do a couple more than just one show.
That's exciting.
Yeah, definitely. I'm ready.
How do you know when you're mentally ready? You said that's a key aspect for you.
Absolutely. So for me, mentally, I know I'm ready when I am not burned, like I don't have that burnout feeling. So when I'm just like, I know towards the end of prep, everyone gets hard. It's you've been, depending on how long you've been prepping. But for me, it's just when I don't have that passion anymore, and I can't get up in the morning, and I'm making excuses to go to the gym, and I just don't have that internal flame, is when I know I'm not mentally ready. For me, my coach knows this, Ray knows this, is I thrive off of, like 8 weeks out is when I'm at my best. Like, I thrive under the time crunch. So he's like, it's 8 weeks out. For some reason, it's just like, there's just this internal flame inside of me. Not that I don't have that flame my entire prep, but it's, I don't know, it's the pressure, it's the time crunch, it's the nerves start to kick in a little bit. And yeah, it's a whole different mental state for me.
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. I get that same way. It varies in terms of timeline, but there's always that one point in prep where it's like right when you think you've given your all, there's just more. And
Yeah,
it's like we've been
exactly.
preparing for that.
It doesn't matter like how many, for me, I don't think it doesn't matters like how many shows you've done, because there's one year that I done like 3 shows, and it's still the same. It's still the same. And it just gets that internal anxiety and that excitement, and all those emotions start flowing, and it's like the best feeling.
It is. And I also appreciate how you said, like, when you're mentally prepared to go in, because I think when you're in a deep improvement season, there's also that question all the time of like, well, when are you ready to start a prep? And I think you make a good point. Like, shouldn't be dragging. You shouldn't be feeling that flame dying out. I especially feel that towards the end of longer preps. Like I definitely felt that at the end of my last prep, because of COVID is like just continuous.
Right.
But I also think about improvement season. So how do you know when you're ready to go into a prep after an improvement season?
How am I ready to go into prep after improvement season? Like I said, I think, it's just a decision or a conversation my coach and I have, and then also, just really, physically, am I ready, physique wise, taking some of the feedback that I got from my last shows. Did I work hard on it? Did we get those growth areas? Did we focus on the areas that we needed to focus on? And he'll ask, are you mentally ready for this? Or are you, and it's really crazy, because I never believed this. And I tell my girls this all the time, because I'm a prime example of it. And my coach will remind me all the time, is during COVID. So for Pittsburgh, North Americans, it was like, you had a prep right in the middle of COVID. They closed the gyms down. Like, I think I was in prep for 2 weeks. And, everyone's freaking out. There's no gyms, there's no equipment. And I started prep, and I was just in a crappy, like, mental state. And I was blaming COVID. There was no reason to blame COVID, right? So I didn't have much gym equipment. I went out, got some dumbbells, a barbell. I have a spin bike at home, but I didn't really have very much equipment. So my coach was like, we're still doing this. We're pushing through until the show is canceled. And I was like, they're going to cancel. Why am I going to work so hard if my show is going to get canceled? And this is just a waste of time. Like, I was just in a negative, crappy mood. And I was like that for probably the first 4 weeks of my prep. And my coach told me, he was like, look, it's not you. You're not giving it your all. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's COVID, but your check-ins are crappy. Like, I don't know what's going on. So for some reason, like, after that, I don't know what kicked in. I think I had heard a podcast, somebody's podcast that said, it was about COVID. It was a COVID podcast that said, everybody's going through the same thing that you're going through. It's not a personal, it's not you shouldn't take it personally, but the entire world, it's not just the United States, the entire world is going through exactly the same trauma that you're going through. So it's basically how you come out of COVID is it's up to you. So right from that, like something mentally kicked in, and my mental state turned. And as soon as that mental state turned, my check-ins and my physique started coming on point. So I was a little nervous because I wasn't coming in where I needed to come in the beginning of my prep for North Americans. But once I, switched mentally to a more positive mental state, it showed in my physique, it showed in my check-ins, it showed, pretty much through the entire prep after that.
Isn't it amazing how you can actually see that too on your body? Like how much of an impact
crazy
beliefs play. It is crazy.
It is crazy. So, and that's how I also tell my girls as a coaching tip as well. Like, from that, it made me really mentally check in with them as well. Hey, how are you feeling? Are you sure personally you don't have personal issues going on? Because I can see that in your check-ins as well. You can still be doing your 30 minutes of cardio, but are you really pushing,
Yes.
I try to really gauge that based on that personal experience. And I share that experience all the time because it was a huge learning for me. On how your mental state really dictates your physique and your prep and your results.
Absolutely. It really does. And I love how you went from like I don't want to say victim mentality, but kind of like, you know what I mean? Where it's like, okay, this is impacting me and it sucks. And what's the point? To wait, this is the point. I'm going to rise above this experience that everyone's having, and I'm going to come out on top. I'm going to prove to myself that I can. And I think that makes a big difference just in life mindset in general. If you can overcome that, it's like, well, you're proving to yourself you can overcome a lot of challenging things. And you've shared in posts and whatnot, and even a little bit on this show, that persistence has been really key for you.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you do day to day, maybe some habits that you think have contributed to your success?
Oh, that's a great question. What are some of the things I do day to day that contribute to my success? I think obviously it's just one of the things is consistency for me, right? Consistency and just making sure that consistency and executing my goals. So whatever that takes. I mean, like I said, I'm a very, very busy person. So just making sure that you really plan out consistency and planning and really always keeping your, how would I say it, eye on the prize, or always remembering your why. So for me with competing, it's yes, I love competing and I love stepping on stage and I love prepping, everything that comes with it. But at the end of the day, I also love the lifestyle. And that's my why, is just, the lifestyle. Of course, off season, I do have, my donuts and snacks and that kind of stuff. But when it is time, it's, usually it's time. So it's time for prep, it's time. And for when I was in that very low mental state during COVID, when I gave myself my little pep talk, I was like, all right, Belinda, you're either in or you're out. So you can either give it all or get out, because the rate that you're going at right now is not going to get you your goal, and it's not going to get you your why. So that, having those little pep talks with me, myself as well, always helps. But yeah.
I think that's awesome, because you bring up a good point. Like if you are half-assing anything, you're going to get meh results, and you're putting your body in a negative position. It's like, if you're going to do a prep. Don't just skate by each day, dragging your feet. I don't want to do this today, or complain about it. I love that you love the lifestyle and that drives you. And I also appreciate that you give yourself pep talks. I think that's awesome. Because I feel like that makes a big difference. Not only does it get you in the right headspace, but shows that you have that belief in
Mhm.
yourself.
And I just tell myself all the time, like, especially when I'm in prep, like, there's so much time commitment. There's, you have a financial obligation as well. So why put yourself through that if you're not going to give your 100%? Why am I going to spend, all this money in investment? Why am I going to spend the investment in time if I'm not giving my 100%? Like, I'm going to give 1,000% because this is a commitment I made to myself, and my why is to do this, and whatever my goal is, make top three, place top five, whatever my goal is. So yeah.
100%. And you know that the girl next to you is probably doing that, if not more. And if
Oh
she's,
yeah.
if she's not, then okay, whatever. You still you don't want to be beat by someone who's not doing as much. So
Absolutely.
you got to show up for
Absolutely.
yourself. And I know we didn't get to talk about this much, and I would really, really like to, because there's a lot of moms out there who want to compete, but
Mhm.
they're concerned about it. How can I make it work with my schedule? What are my daughters going to think? I want to hear from your personal experience how competing has impacted, if at all, your relationship with your daughters. Mhm.
um yeah, actually, I'm so glad you asked that. So my younger daughter and myself, we have I would say, a really great relationship. I hope she would agree. But she is a great supporter. She's like my number one fan. She's a great supporter. I love it. And sometimes I always wonder, and I did ask her when she was younger. She just turned 20, so she's a little bit older now. But when I did start competing, she was in high school, and I did ask her, like, is it kind of weird that, like, your mom is, like, in a bikini posting pictures, on her Instagram, and she does have, her friends following me and stuff. And sometimes I would kind of feel weird about that. And she's like, no, mom. She's like, it would be different if it was a different kind of bikini, or you were, posing differently, in different pictures. She's like, but no, she's definitely told me that she's proud of me. She has been and is still one of my posing coaches.
Mhm.
So she is a little different than me. She was a cheerleader. She did dance. So she has a little bit more rhythm and a little bit more swag. So I always pose in front of her, and she always gives me tips on, you gotta move more. You can't be so stiff. You gotta do this. You gotta do that. And she's always right on. And just by her being there to help me, to give me feedback, means the world to me. We just had a show a couple weeks ago, and I was coaching. And she was like, I'm going to be backstage with you, because I know this is, super important to you. So I just want to be there for your support, your support system, and make sure that you don't need anything, or you don't need my help backstage. So, we've always been close, but I would say she's definitely my number one supporter. And, she's not very big to the gym. She gets asked that question all the time, and
Really?
coach and my coach is like, hey, when are you going to step on stage? And she gets that pressure question, are you ready to step on stage and compete? And she's like, no, I'm not ready. And she's 20, and she wants to live her life, and eat fried food and fast food all the time. So she'll come over and eat healthy once in a while, but she's not looking to do that anytime soon.
That's so funny. I think it's so cool that, you have that support, and that you were able to have that conversation as well. Like, is it weird? Is it strange? And a few other moms have come on the show and talked about their experiences. And I always find it
Mhm.
so interesting.
Yeah.
Um, because of course it's your family. A change is a
Mhm.
change, is gonna impact
Mhm.
that, and it can be positive or not.
And especially with daughters, right? It's like, is it a good is it, I guess a lot of the questions we get as competitors is, are you setting the right example for your daughters? Absolutely, 100%. I would say yes. I mean, it's just the lifestyle, the eating. They've never told, at least when I was in school a long time ago, they never really taught you about, clean eating or how important eating was. And I mean, yes, we did hear, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, but they don't understand why. Like all those type of, additions to my life has just made it, a part of my lifestyle. Even with my family, like my mom, she's always asking me, hey, how do you make this? Or, she'll come over and she's like, oh, I'm going to make that for dinner. That's really great. So my family has inherited, are trying to inherit some of the habits as well. So it's only added positivity to my life.
That's awesome. Oh, I love to hear it when families are so supportive, and that only contributes to your success as well. And I think it's also great because it is a positive example, especially if your approach is healthy and you're
Mm-hmm.
reinforcing the conversations you want to be having about competing and you want to be having about the lifestyle, then of course it can be positive and people can learn so much from the lifestyle of a bodybuilder, because people think, oh, it's so extreme, oh, it's so
Right.
crazy, but it's like, well, at what point did you decide that fueling your body well and moving
Right.
it every day was extreme? Like, when did we all decide that? That's
Exactly.
crazy.
Or you're starving yourself. Look at how thin you are. No, I'm eating 6 times a day and I'm eating like 2,100 calories. Okay. I'm not starving myself.
Right, meanwhile they'll have like 100-calorie pack of Oreos and
Right.
then be like, oh, I'm like, I haven't eaten much today, and then it's like, okay, well, and you're not losing weight, well, because your body has no fuel.
Exactly. Or you're not moving enough. I always just try to tell people, just move, like get up, move. I could go for walks.
Go for a walk,
Yeah,
literally go for a 20-minute walk.
yeah, exactly. So, and for me, like competing is just, I mean, the lifestyle, obviously, but mentally, I mean, I always train alone. For the most part, I train alone. Once in a while, I'll train with like a team member or a friend, but I train alone and I absolutely enjoy training alone. It's
Me
just,
too.
yeah, it's my me time. It's I'm in the zone. I get to go at my own pace. I prefer um, to train alone just because it's like it gives me that mental kind of break. I know it's hard to think that, but I even after a long day of work and I've been, on the computer for 8, 9 hours a day. If I do go to the gym at night, it's therapeutic for me. It's my therapy. It's my alone time. And that's how I decompress.
Oh, yes, I feel you on that. Especially it's like if you're constantly on your computer,
Oh
constantly
my
communicating with
gosh.
others,
Right.
you just want to like put on a good podcast or listen to some good music or literally do none of that and just connect with the weights on your body. And it's just like,
Absolutely.
oh, I get
Yes.
to like, it's like
Yes.
just my own bubble.
Yeah. H sister. Yes. I love it.
I feel you. I really do. So we've talked about a lot of different things, which I appreciate. And I'm glad you're willing to go through all of this with me. And I got to ask you, if you could give your best advice for someone who's never competed before, but wants to, what would it be? And then if you could give your best advice to someone on their road to pro, what would that be?
Ooh, so somebody that has never competed before that wants to compete,
Mhm.
what would my advice be? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay. This is the advice that I always give everyone that asks me about it is one, I always tell people to go check out a show. So if they haven't seen a show or, seen a show online or went to a local show, I always have them start with that just so they understand exactly what they're getting themselves into. The stage, the stage presence, the crowd, just basically putting themselves in that environment. And then to obviously find a very good coach or talk to someone on that has competed, to ask them all the questions that they have. Like for me, I didn't do that. And I wish I did even before starting competing. I went to a show and I saw, the girls on stage and I was like, I want to do that. But there were so many questions, unanswered questions when I started competing that I wish truthfully somebody could answer, right? In terms of like financial, commitments and time and, posing and everything that goes into it. So those would be the top two advice that I would give is find yourself a good coach and go find out a local show, check out a local show. For going pro, for me, I was just very fortunate to get my card on my first national show. But for anybody else that is chasing their pro card, I would say that it is your journey. There's no time limit. There's no time, don't set a time frame of getting your pro card in like a year or 2 years, because sometimes you might need that break mentally, if not physically, but mentally, to get that card. So I would say take your time with it. Don't stop loving the process either. Even though it's frustrating and you might have your downs, don't give up on the process, because the wins are going to come as fast as, the downs are going to come. And every opportunity has its own journey and its own reasoning for happening. So always, look at the silver lining and really don't give up on the process.
I love those pieces of advice. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that and sharing your experiences as well throughout this episode. I would love for people to be able to connect with you and maybe even work with you or find you. So can you let everybody know where they can do that?
Sure. So I am on Instagram. My Instagram name is Busy Bell. I know it's so weird. It's a name that I've had forever and people have just stuck, but it's BUZYBEL _ IFBB Pro. You can find me on Instagram there. I do also have Facebook. You can just find me by Belinda Rivera. But yeah, those are the two social media outlets that I have. I don't have Twitter or anything else. So I'm not a tweeter. It must be the age thing, but I've just never connected with Twitter.
I'm not either. I'm like a long caption type of girl. I can't. Yes. I'm not a big fan of like the tweet. I think it's nice, but I like the stories. I like Instagram. I like all that. I'm like focus on one thing, right?
Exactly. That's why I don't have too many. But yes, definitely reach out. I'd love to help, answer questions or, help others. I love to help, with my experiences and help others in this journey.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And you're so genuine. And it's been awesome talking with you. And I'll make sure I put all your links that you just mentioned, Instagram, Facebook, in the show notes page, which you guys can all find at celestial.fit/podcast. Of course, if you're listening right when it's been released on Friday morning or afternoon or evening, that's going to be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, that's also cool because you can scroll down on the category section on celestial.fit/podcast and you can find Belinda Rivera right there. And you'll be able to just click and see all the show notes, episode timestamps, and the links and other cool resources as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As always, it means a lot to me. I would especially appreciate a review. It's just as quick and easy as posting to your story on Instagram, which is also greatly appreciated by myself and the athlete. So your support goes a long way for the show and helping other people to hear the incredible stories of these athletes. So thank you guys so much. And Belinda, thank you again for your time.
Celeste, you're amazing. Thank you so much for providing this outlet. It's great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope that you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this podcast. Make it awesome.